the keyboard to the boardroom, this is the Business of Esports. Keyboard to the boardroom. This is the Business of Esports Podcast. I am Paul the Prophet Dawalibi. I'm joined today by my friend and co-host, the Honorable Judge Jimmy Baratta. For those of you who are new here, welcome to the official podcast of esports. What we do is we cover the most pressing gaming and esports topics and news of the week, but we look at all of it through a business and C-suite lens. We dissect, we analyze the business implications of everything happening in this industry. For our regular listeners, thank you guys for tuning in every week. Thank you for all the love, all the 5-star ratings and reviews. You know, I read every one of the reviews you guys leave on the podcast. There's so much love for the show. I can't tell you how much we all appreciate it. We love doing this. Leaving a review means so much to us. If you love the show, go leave a review. Share the podcast with a friend, family member, colleague, anyone who loves gaming. It's the way that the podcast has continued to grow, and we appreciate it. Jimmy, how you doing this week?
Having a great week, Paul. Thanks for having me on the show as always. And hey to all of our regular listeners, you know, we're back with another one. And so thank you for not just for leaving the reviews, but for continuing to tune in every week to hear us yammer on about whatever we got to say, not just in the recordings, in the podcast recordings, which I find, you know, super interesting when we have great guests and great backstories, but also on the live show when we kind of just shoot our shots, give our hot takes and our opinions. It's a lot of fun to do this with everybody. So worth every once in a while just reminding you guys that not only do we appreciate how much you appreciate us, but you know, I don't know, just all good things. So happy to have that.
Here's the important question, Jimmy. Why are you not on your honeymoon? This is for our listeners. This is Jimmy's honeymoon right here. This man is as dedicated as it gets. He's doing the Business of Esports podcast when he should be on his honeymoon.
Soon enough, I think we're still looking for the right destination. Hopefully before the end of the summer. I think it's one of those years, Paul. Like there's just so much going on for all of us. But yeah, super excited. Got married this weekend. Thank you for all of that. I got a lot of listeners that sent me DMs congratulating me and just appreciate the love, guys, of this community. So yeah, I'm a married man. It's very similar to being an engaged man, I must say, but honeymoon coming soon, maybe in the metaverse. We'll see what she lets me get away with.
I wanted to ask you, did you get to try Diablo Immortal finally?
Not only did I
we talked about it, right?
Not only did I play Diablo Immortal with my Razer Kishi, but I actually converted 5 of my friends at my wedding who were all playing Diablo Immortal while we were hanging out in between photo, you know, all my groomsmen late at night after the rehearsal dinner. We literally were playing it the entire weekend. We're all on the same server. We all picked classes that coincide with one another to run group raids and things in dungeons together. So I mentioned, you know, I was never a huge Diablo fan when I was on PC, and that's because I think it's a much better mobile title. Honestly, I was really impressed by it for mobile. So I'm all in right now.
It's so funny you say that. I've been reading, like I'm so highly entertained by all the hate the game gets on Reddit and on Twitch. I mean, I was watching a bit of Asmongold's stream just today, and it's just, the volume of hate I don't think I've seen, not any time in recent history. I mean, there's obviously always hate against games, and then, you know, we saw the Ubisoft backlash with their whole NFT thing, and you know, there's always backlash against games, but the volume of hate against Diablo Immortal, I don't know. Is it wrong that it makes me feel warm and fuzzy inside? I don't know what that says about me. But
I have to look into that one separately.
Yeah. Look, this episode, I will say, Jimmy, is really special to me. It's really special to Business of Esports. It's really special to me. We have a guest today who has been I'm not deserving of the support he has given the show and our little community here. And he's just been always a great supporter and one of the most interesting people, I think, in all of esports. Maybe the only person on the planet that could probably take my place and be as opinionated, and someone who I think this is a long time coming to get him on the show. We finally got him on. We have none other than Chris LaPorte on the show today. He's the founder of Reset. He's also maybe more well known as the founder of Insert Coins. Chris, welcome to the Business of Esports podcast. Finally, we got you on.
Hey guys, first time, long time. Just calling in.
Yeah.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening.
I want to say, seriously, heartfelt thank you. I mean, in the early days when the show was much smaller and the listener base was much smaller, you were always there and always had interesting things to say and never afraid to get in my face. There's a lot of people who are afraid to get in my face. You were never afraid to get in my face, and I love that. And it just made for so much interesting conversation. And like I said, I've just been looking forward to this for so long, Chris. For the listeners who maybe don't know about you, would love if you could give them a bit about yourself, your background, why you got into gaming, how you got into gaming, what you're up to now, what Reset's all about, for example. Just a bit of the Chris story.
Sure. And, thank you again for having me on. The reason why I was such a fan of your show was because, esports has always been kind of in this echo chamber. And it was exciting to hear like this diversification of ideas within your podcast, your shows. And for that, I really thank you. We need more ancillary, thoughts on this business. And that's why I was such a fan. And yeah, it was fun going toe to toe with you. But kind of been always in my nature. My story is interesting. But I always like to kind of start it with 2005 because that's when I came to Vegas. I was originally a medical device sales rep. I was doing nuclear cardiology. And then orthopedics sales as well after that. And I was like, you know what? Enough is enough. This isn't my passion. And I opened up a video game bar/nightclub in 2011. And, the way I did it was I brought some doctors who I had relationships with, in my previous life and took them to Evo 2010. And I was like, you got to check this thing out, man. Like people get excited and they're our age and they drink. And, thus the culmination of Insert Coins, which was, again, a video game bar that was really focused on the culture that I was a part of. And, I don't know who I'm subtweeting right now, but there was a dead guy who said, build your business like a religion and nonsense starts to make sense. And here I am saying this video game thing, you should be part of my cult. It's fun. And, got gamers out of the closet per se by making video games approachable. So, whether it was Jazzy Jeff, Brand Nubian, Just Blaze, whatever, random great artists and musicians coming in who genuinely enjoyed video games, do a nightclub entertainment kind of show. But then after that, kick back and play video games at the bar. It wasn't just arcade cabinets like so many barcades at the time. It was really capturing all elements of video game culture from the Atari to, at that time, the PlayStation 3 and the Xbox 360. Vegas got to see video games for the first time. I remember, this is the entertainment capital of the world and going to the mayor of Las Vegas, the Honorable Oscar Goodman. And, he just said, he goes, this is going to work. And I was like, yeah, check out this bar top. It's got RGB lighting. He goes, what's RGB lighting? That was in 2011. Where are we now? And, it just became a cultural thing for Vegas. And I use the term culture a lot because it's the exciting part of where we are today with esports is, how we sell that culture to that outside audience that I did once upon a time at Insert and we're trying to do now at Reset.
Chris, I'm curious, why do you think, like, in my mind, the meeting of gaming and something more adult, right, like drinking, is so obvious, right? Like, as we're all, the three of us call it not your typical, we're not the 13-year-old Roblox gamer. We're all a little bit older and all gamers. And I know there is a large audience for this. Why do you think we've seen so few attempts at bringing gaming into that, like, more mainstream nightlife and bar culture, let's call it?
I think what it comes down to is we don't have enough ambassadors to kind of bridge that gap, right? Right now, I mean, even when I first started with Insert Coins, I was a hardcore nerd, and I still am, but I didn't quite have the, there's a French word, je ne sais quoi. You can tell me if I'm right or wrong on that one. But, to speak to that nightlife audience. And so I found people to do it for me, right? And then suddenly, oh, okay, yeah, this does make sense. And again, that was 2011. It closed in 2015. But today you have things like the Valhalla Esports Lounge. I believe that is in Texas, and they're doing okay. You have the 1UP, 2UP, and 3UP. There's a lot of them that are out there, but they're focused primarily more on just the video game sector as a whole, which I still am fully behind because that market is so massive. I like to, when I have my casino kind of clients, I always say, like, let's cast the wide net first before we figure that pinpoint esports out. And at the same time, we've seen esports go from this very hyper focused CSGO, League of Legends, et cetera, to now chess or, Clash of Clans, anything that says, hey, there's competitive gaming to it. True. It's an esport now. So, I do think it's just a part of how this industry grows. It's slow and steady, committed with authenticity and with people who understand the language, but then who also can kind of bridge that gap without, I don't have to pay, I don't know, what's that soccer? I shouldn't have to pay Beckham to say esports is cool. I should have someone like Thundercat, who's a musician, who's like, I love esports. I'm going to talk about it the next time I'm at a concert. Those kind of things.
I want to talk a little bit more about Insert Coins, Chris, because it was massive success, and similarly, actually, my first date with my wife, we went to a barcade, and it's funny because you had mentioned that what made you guys a little different was that you weren't just a barcade. I think the term you used was that you captured the elements of that gaming culture, right? Particularly highlighting certain consoles, as well as activations with very well-known, pop artists, DJs, et cetera, that you had mentioned. I'm curious if you could point to either some specific activations, maybe something like a Wednesday night fight night or something that it was like, this is something we did that was super successful, that really exemplified that feeling.
So it's funny because this is when I start getting on my platform, my high horse, and I say, kids, back in my day.
Do it.
So in 2013, we started to really focus on esports events. And that's actually at the same time when I started to see my business start to suffer because the market just wasn't there, but I was committed, damn it. And, we showed Twitch to our Bud Light ambassador and all these liquor sponsors. And like, what's this Twitch thing you're talking about? They just didn't know. And so we got them to understand that this is an opportunity for them to push their product to an online audience. These people perhaps may not be coming to Insert Coins, but at least they're going to be aware of your brand to a market that, just you haven't touched yet. And that was back in 2013. And while we did a lot of events, streaming on Twitch and, tying in this sponsorship play back then, the reality is we had more success when I did an event like Tech Mobile versus, Madden or Street Fighter, because it actually touched on an audience that they were more familiar with those things because of that older age group. And the question earlier was, how do you do this? But everyone should be doing this bar thing. Well, I think what we're learning over time is that the esports audience isn't quite 21 and up, at this larger audience. They're actually much younger. So it was important for me to collaborate with, not necessarily the weeklies or the monthlies, but just when we did an event, we tied the NBA, we did NBA Summer League events. We made sure to do that. When we did UNLV, we put our name on like the basketball court, the Running Rebels. Insert Coins is on the floor to just get that. Oh, what is this thing? Because people still don't understand esports or gaming. So and I'll throw one more aside. I was actually at a meeting a couple of weeks ago, and the young lady who was our bartender at the time, she was like, "What are you talking about?" And I was like, "Oh, esports. It's this competitive gaming thing." And she's like, I didn't know that's a thing. I'm like, "Well, do you play video games?" She goes, "Oh, I play Valorant." And I'm looking at the person I'm with, and I'm dumbfounded. I'm like, "Wait, time out. I'm sorry. How old are you?" No, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but how old are you? And how did you not know this? She was 24 years old. She plays Valorant every weekend with her 3 girlfriends. That's the market we keep saying exists. And she didn't know that there was a competitive element of professional gamers. And that's what I always say time and time again is, we're in this bubble that we keep seeing grow. But how many are going outside to touch what's out there to say, hey, come on into our little, religion per se, and, see what's there. So there was a very roundabout way of answering. Like, we just basically plastered our name to everything, not with the intent of learn about insert coins, more about learn about gaming. And, we want to show your group, what we do.
So without pointing fingers, I guess, and calling out names, what do you think today other LAN centers, barcades, tournament organizers, social kind of hubs for gamers, what do you think that they're doing wrong or that they need to be doing better to avoid a situation like that where someone just lacks the education or maybe that it's not fully accepted in popular culture the way a lot, it's definitely growing, but can you point specifically as someone that's done it, that laid the groundwork and the foundation to, I think, a lot of these businesses, what you think that they're still missing that you guys maybe got right, but like you mentioned, we're a little too early at the time?
No, I don't think anyone's doing anything wrong. When I look at the esports industry, we need people to drive that hardcore community and that elements that we build that true super fan, right? And there needs to be different levels. Like, there's more of a casual play and there's more of a younger play to build, this now. I mean, look, 11 years ago, and I'm at Insert Coins, the last thing I'm thinking about is kids in middle school and high school. The past 2 years, it's all we're talking about now. Why? Because we're building this another niche market. I'm 45 years old. I am the boomer in the room, right? When I was a nerd gamer, I was the nerd, right? Each subsequent generation, that subsection of, gamer just gets larger, but it's not the whole generation. It's just getting bigger each time. So, I still say stay the course. When I look at some of these arenas, maybe get smaller, but, that's not for me to do. I made that mistake too. Insert Coins was probably too big for what the venue was at the time, which is why we ended up closing our doors, right? If we're going to attack this market, attack it intelligently and be niche for that hardcore audience, but find ways to attract people outside. I mean, look, I'm sorry to say, I see a lot of these venues where there's a giant Super Mario character. Okay, cool. You're a thing for kids. That's what people start to immediately think. And like, oh, games, toys, children. That's unfortunately what a lot of the mainstream audience still thinks. So, with Insert, I tried to really make it more sleek, sexy, and, attractive. I mean, literally, I had my doors open. The common thought practice for nightlife in Las Vegas is you close the door and it's a mystery what's behind the box, right? With Insert, we kept our doors wide open. So when someone walked by, they're like, what are all these flashing lights? We have this giant movie theater screen that's showing anime, again, 2011. Now anime is everywhere. Great, show more anime, but don't put a Naruto statue in front of your venue because now you're a kid's place. So, it's all these do subtle things to attract the nerd audience. And I don't mean that disrespectfully because I am one, so I can say the N-word, nerd. And, the reality is you just have to be smart with how you cater to multiple audiences, respect those audiences, but don't sell yourself out by just trying to be like what's going to be seen as a kid's place.
Chris, part of the frustration on my end is I look at just about any bar or club today, and there are things that are very consistent, right? Like a large percentage of them have screens showing sports. A large percentage of them have pool tables. A large percentage of them have dartboards, right? Like, why? And as excited as I am about bringing gaming to nightlife, it seems to me if you look at the population of gamers, which is large today, some say 3 billion if you count everyone who has ever played a game on their phone, right? It seems to me like so obvious that any bar should just also have an Xbox, right? The same way they have a dartboard. Right. Do you agree with that? I'm curious if you disagree with that. Like, is that the 5-year, 10-year sort of, in your mind, eventuality?
No, 100%. I mean, it's funny that you say this because, Insert Coins is my first entrepreneurial play, right? Reset is now the culmination of let's try this again. And I'll tell you, when Insert closed, I was like, oh my God, what do I do? I had no direction because I was like, this is what I know works. It just didn't work because the timing was wrong. And I remember going to all these other potential investors I'm like, hey, look, we could do this again. There's just the market changed a little bit, and here are the ways to do it. And it was me like, nah, let's just make it like this instead. And it became kind of like that frat house play you're talking about. More skee ball, more of the basketball thing, and all these other like kind of cheesy things that doesn't necessarily make for a gamer, haven. But instead of, looking at this as you guys are wrong, it was just, okay, maybe it isn't the time yet for it. But I do believe, and that's what the reset play is, we're resetting the way nightlife is supposed to operate. And it's going to include things like cannabis and video games and esports. But when there's just a larger North American audience that understands it, and what we do a reset right now to kind of lead the witness, because I know you guys ask really good questions, but I'm going to just carry the torch, is, we've been working on esports betting for so long in Vegas. And the longer I'm in it, the more I'm like, I'm going to back up because it's just, I'm talking to people who are really in the know and they're throwing numbers around, and I'll throw questions to you because this is my favorite thing to do. You've talked about this on the show about, the betting during COVID, but something to think about. Like, I'll ask you, CSGO Major 2021, viewership was 2.7 million people watching. The NBA first round playoffs at the same time was 3.3 million. You look at those two numbers, that's damn near similar. So What's the betting handle? No one's really expressing it because it might not be that big. 2022, CSGO Major actually goes down 2.1 million, but still sizable. 2022 NBA first round playoffs, 3.7 million. What was the betting handle for us now that we have betting all over the country? It was $1 billion in US bets. The numbers are still relatively close, but I don't see people like Entain or Rivalry jumping out like, look at all the money we made. So, when that happens, I just urge caution as to maybe we're just not there yet. It's coming. I'm not here to say it's not, but, from a timing perspective, that's why you don't see the video games in all the bars. But, shout out to the XSET guys for putting them in a nightclub. I still say that's genius. Maybe a little early, but still very smart.
I was going to ask you your thoughts on that specifically. As you know, we talked about it last week on the news show, and I also think it was genius. But maybe my take was a little bit different, right? I just thought it's like I, as a nerd, hate going to clubs because I don't know what to do with myself there. Finally, I have something I actually know what like I actually can occupy myself with something there. And I'm curious. I mean, you think it's genius, Chris? I'm curious for what reason. Like, what's your take on that?
Because again, there's something to be said about the nightlife industry and the cultures that it brings. I go back to 2013. I'm in the middle of the whole downtown project thing with Tony Hsieh, just changing the landscape of downtown Las Vegas. And we had many people come to see what this place is, right? We had a writer come in to do a full, piece on downtown project and what it represents. This dude accidentally comes into Insert Coins and writes a whole paragraph about, they're doing this thing, but this Insert Coins place is doing it right. And I quote, it hosts more subculture than the West Village ever did. If Jane Jacobs had been a lush, she would have drunk herself to death at Insert Coins. And what that told me was that we were attracting so many other people. And I wanted to embrace that because gaming does touch on so many different demographics, markets, and cultures. There's the culture word again. And so when you put those things in a nightclub, look, and I had video games at a bar. Paul, you would have been in there. Jimmy, you would have been there. I would say about a third of the guests of your show have been to Insert Coins. I know, I've seen them, I talked to them. But the best part is I had the writers of CSI come into my bar when they had to do CSI Las Vegas because they're like, no, I just want to come here because I want to play video games while I drink instead of watching sports. I'm like, yeah, exactly. And they did an episode about Insert Coins, season 12, episode 8. Make sure you watch it. And then, cool. Again, it's just the idea of the more you attract video, the more you attract or install video game entertainment into your, industry. Yeah, I do see. I mean, look, how many bars had those little touch screens to play some kind of games? This is simply just the evolution of that.
Chris, can I put you on the spot here then on the esports question? Because, we called this podcast The Business of Esports, but my view has always been that esports as a term, the definition was too narrow, right? Like if you and I go play basketball, we would say we're playing a sport, right? Just because we're two amateurs doesn't mean we're not playing a sport. But yet the industry does use a stricter definition of esports as, competitive play on a stage with an audience or online with an audience, whatever the format is, there is this strict definition of esports, and people do differentiate it from the bigger gaming opportunity. Are you long-term bearish on esports? Call it that strict definition. Are you bearish in the short term, like is a 5-year or 10-year kind of horizon? Like, how do you feel about the esports opportunity as someone who's built a business in the space relative to the broader gaming opportunity?
No, look, I am very bearish in the next 5 years simply because the market just doesn't exist in my city, right? Las Vegas is my metaverse where it's a 21 plus market only. Like we're like Jamaica, right? You go to Jamaica for a beach and weed. You come to Vegas for 21 plus entertainment. That's perhaps not what the esports audience is today, but it will be. And, again, I'm not going to instill what I believe because times change. I grew up playing in the arcade. Esports for me was talking trash at the arcade cabinet and beating somebody else. That was my esports. It's not what it is today, but I have an 11-year-old son who strives to eventually be on that stage. But at the same time, I'll go to the esports arena here in Las Vegas, and they're not necessarily seeing esports success by way of playing League of Legends or CSGO. But boy, are they getting a lot of people from Mario Kart. Go figure. So, I do think that right now, with the amount of money that has been invested in the space, yes, we have to, pivot a lot and expand the, the definition of esports so that we can grow the market. But I do think 10 years from now, 15 years from now, it's 100% back to the original thing that we're talking about, which is a much more organized, much more, just a truly built from the bottom business where maybe it's not Street Fighter 6. Hope it is, might not be, but it sure as hell could be Riot Games' fighting game coming out because they really understand that way of creating a, perfectly balanced esports title. And, another joke I always make is Fortnite. That's an esport. Then it's Fortnite. It's not an esport. So it's just what we have to do to survive, I guess, but it's going to be there eventually.
So you drew a specific, or rather you called out, your take from Vegas, your metaverse.
Yep.
We have a lot of great esports and a lot of great gaming companies in Vegas, right? You got the HyperX Arena at the Luxor. We went there, had so much fun. You got the Razer store, I think one of 5 in the world, right? Feels like an Apple store, but meant for gamers. You also have teams like the Inferno and Dark Zero. You mentioned being kind of in a bear market or entering one, as well as being in a 21 plus city. What do you think these 4 businesses or businesses like them that are in your city are either doing right to weather that storm, or just things that you can call out that you respect about them and respect about esports, specifically in Vegas, that's still finding ways to attract that 21 plus audience and that's going to keep them around for the long term, at least in Las Vegas and cities like Vegas?
So great question, because I immediately go back to the whole idea of what is your esports arc? Are you a lifestyle brand or are you an esports organization, sports team? And so, for Vegas, you have to be events driven. Right? And that's just what it is. You have to attract as many eyeballs as possible to come see the thing. FaZe Clan puts their giant logo on the side of a building. All right, great. You want to know who was at that event? I was. You want to know how many people knew who FaZe Clan was? 5% of that organization. 5% of that audience, because they were there to see Jack Harlow, not to see the gamer dudes. It's just the reality. It's nothing to be upset about. It's just let's figure out how to, again, bridge that gap. And so teams, that we see here locally, I love what the Inferno is doing because they're just reaching out and working with their local businesses. And again, this isn't to disparage anyone's efforts, but we're Little League Baseball. You need to put a sponsor of some mechanic on the back of your thing. Talk to the local mechanic and get that sponsor on the back of your name and start helping your local businesses grow. That's what this was. As the old guy in esports, it's always been about organic, grassroots driven community. So that's what these guys are doing. And for Vegas, because we are the city of, entertainment, the entertainment capital of the world, you have to be events driven, entertainment driven. And that's the way to do Vegas.
Do you see a world where Vegas embraces more event space or more casino floor space specifically to attract that younger demographic or to continue to support their interest in esports? We see a huge conflict right now, right, where they don't want to take out slot machines or other games where they know what the ROI is. They know that that audience is still coming for those gambling opportunities. Do you see a world in the next 5 years or later that's more geared towards putting consoles and other video gaming opportunities and mixing that together, or live events as well, hosting more tournaments at places like the HyperX Arena or other facilities in Vegas?
That's Sphere they're building, right? They supposedly claim that there's going to be esports tournaments there.
Yeah. So, all right, look, I'm the Vegas guy. I'm the inside guy. I'm going to tell you a story. Yes, one day. Back in 2014, I had started a small little side hustle company called Quantum Gaming Concepts, where I was trying to put together skill-based gaming, which was a real buzz at the time. Like, how do we bring skill-based gaming to the casino floor? And I got to sit down with some pretty just extravagantly smart casino minds. One in particular is Diana Bennett, who was the daughter of Bill Bennett, who was like a true icon in the industry. And she was like, Chris, this sounds really great, but this is called a pay table. And she showed me what the industry of the casinos really look like and what's expected from that casino floor and how much money is supposed to come through at any given time over certain hours and certain weeks and certain days. And we're just not there. And I had to understand that a long time ago. And I've reviewed this case over, yearly. And you guys, you've met with Seth Shore. Like, the guy is constantly banging the drum, but he knows it just as much as I do. Like, it's growing, it's almost there, but it's not there yet. And, I go back to this term I use, the mousetrap. Casino flooring is very, specifically designed to do a thing. So, just to put like video game stuff in the middle of a room doesn't quite work with the way casinos operate. You have to work within the rules of their game per se. So eventually, yes, I could see an area that's more video game focused, no different than a poker room, because look at all these online, bet against your friends online stuff. Play is one, Players Lounge is another. I think there's like 20 of these that get investment capital, right? I don't know the names of these companies, all of them, but they're building a market, they're building the audience. So yes, eventually we'll see where there's a larger, critical mass of people who will bet on video games or bet on esports. But right now, the casino's not going to drive away the dude who's betting on the ponies, because those guys are there way more than the guys who play video games.
I actually want to dive a little bit further into this because it's a really interesting topic. Specific example, I'm not sure if you watched Drake on Twitch. I think it was a week ago with thestake.com.
Sure did.
I'm curious your take on the overlap between, and you had mentioned earlier with CSGO, with esports betting. What's your take on that overlap of people playing card games and other traditional casino games on Twitch online, as well as other similar opportunities I think that we're seeing overlapping those two communities?
So I was hypercritical.
Mostly slots, by the way, right? And
yeah,
XQC,
right. XQC, right.
Yeah.
And I was hypercritical of the Drake thing and the train wrecks and XQC only because they were doing it in non-regulated markets. Otherwise, I'm great with this, because at the end of the day, I wanted to come to Vegas because I watched Rounders over and over and over again. Guess what? How is that any different than watching someone bet on stream? We can talk all the moral stuff you want to talk about. I fell in love with Vegas because of movies about Vegas. Then I came here. Am I worse for it? No. Did I have some bad times? Sure, but it's Vegas. That's what happens. There's highs and lows. So, to answer the question, I do think there's going to be an opportunity to, capture this online culture. And again, Twitch streamers, yeah, we think there's a lot of them, but in the grand scheme of things for a casino organization, no, we're just another segment of, a much larger world. But as a matter of fact, there's a gentleman whose name I don't recall right now, and to him I apologize, but he just had opened, and again, so smart, at the Plaza Hotel. He does slot machine streaming live in the casino. And now he has his own section in the Plaza Hotel Casino, where it's a non-smoking area, which is very attractive to a younger market and audience. And he's streaming slots on YouTube in a casino. And to that guy, I say, great. So, when XQC and Train want to come to Vegas, let's have that conversation.
But doesn't it kind of prove that the skill-based gaming in the casinos probably kind of a dead idea in the sense that, first of all, that takes quite a bit of real estate. Second of all, not clear that any of these people will actually want to come to casinos, right? You can just as easily do it online. Third of all, the casinos have to replace very profitable slot machines with these things that are probably not nearly as profitable on a per square foot basis. Like, doesn't the rise of online slot machines, even amongst gamers, which is the target market for skill-based games, sort of prove that the in-casino skill-based games maybe have no future?
There's a lot of truth to that, only because, to the earlier point about pay tables, you're supposed to make so much money per minute, per hour, per whatever. So yes, and those games take time. And I also always like to bring up, esports is a lot like poker. Sure, there was a big boom of poker, but if you look at casinos today, those poker rooms are a lot smaller. Why are they smaller? Because they don't make enough money compared to those other things. And you can play poker online. So, it's really fascinating when you just kind of zoom out from the forest, from the trees, from the forest from the trees, however that colloquialism goes, and just see like where we fit in the grand scheme of things. We got work to do.
Chris, you're probably the only person I would ask this question, but I'm curious your biggest pet peeve about the esports industry today. And the thing you're most excited about. So the thing that gets you most sort of up in arms and the thing that gets you most excited. I'm curious.
The thing that gets you most up in arms is just this hyper, I like to live in my world of true intention and just straight up transparency. There's been for too long just how hyper valuable esports are when they're not. We're all talking about the $1 billion SPAC. I mean, from day one, I was like, there's no way an esports team is worth $1 billion when the entire WNBA, which gets people to pay for tickets, is worth $1 billion. And, that's always been my frustration because I'm always going to the casinos. I'm going to these non-endemic markets. Look, I'm over here saying, hey, let's just set the table. Pour you a glass of wine. Let me tell you about this video game and esports thing. And all of a sudden, this drunk VC guy comes in, bam, esports, look at all this money in my pocket. And you can't even spell the word esports. We're still confused by that. Come on, man, get out of here. I'm trying to slowly work this through. A little bit of foreplay. We can't just jam this thing down their throat. Like, we have to work this, where it goes to. And that's why I'm so bullish long-term, because I know it's there, right? Like, I just know it's there because I go anywhere in Las Vegas and I talk about esports and it's like a 50% chance that they'll know. But when I say insert coins, it's 99%. Like, everyone's like, oh man, I love that place. Okay, cool, great. Let's start from there and work our way to what's clearly going to be very important for sports books and for the Las Vegas casino world, because, and again, this is why we started Reset. Whether it's cannabis, with my partners at Thrive, working on multiple concepts there, right? It could be a video game concept, it could be more a high-end food and beverage concept, but cannabis is here. Cannabis is a $1 billion industry in the state alone. Want to know my frustration? Esports is a $1 billion industry. I have that in my state for cannabis. Like, cool, man, you're $1 billion. Good job. Start making some revenue. And by taking these new options, and I can introduce esports through those other, again, become those ambassadors, I think Reset can do what a lot of other, esport ancillary businesses can do as well, which is make esports a part of your revenue stream, not the revenue stream.
I definitely want to get more into Reset and Thrive, Chris. I feel like the show is just nonstop hot takes on your thoughts on different elements of the industry, and I definitely value and appreciate that. But I don't want to omit or forget to talk about your current projects, what you're doing since Insert Coins, what that secret sauce is. Specifically, also the overlap of cannabis in the gaming community as well, because that's, I think, a big topic that we don't talk enough about. And like you mentioned, is so massive in your state alone, but also as part of the gaming culture at large. I'll leave it vaguely and generally to you to speak to it, I suppose, and we can find some follow-ups along the way.
No, look, I mean, it's fun. And so after Insert Coins closed, again, I was like, what do I do next? And a gentleman approached me and said, hey, what if we just did Insert Coins with cannabis? And I was like, oh, that sounds great. How do we do that? And it was like, work with me. And so for the past 6 years, we've been working behind the scenes with the regulators and working as to how to safely promote and utilize cannabis in Las Vegas entertainment. The reality is a lot of things are illegal in this country, but Vegas always likes to do the illegal stuff first. We were the first to do gambling. Now we're the first to do, cannabis lounges per se. And so what's been really fun about this voyage and this journey is when I talk to people in the cannabis space, they sound like the esports people in the cannabis space. They're these OGs like, hey, get out of here. Who are you? You're coming into my industry. I'm like, hey, man, I know the feeling. I'm not. I'm just here to help, And, it's this opportunity to, we're seeing whenever a state legalizes cannabis, you see almost a flip in tax revenue from drinking to, the multiple ways of enjoying the social lubricant that is cannabis, whether it's edibles, smoking, drinking, what have you. And so we can see that there's a younger market who sees cannabis as a truly just normal thing, as it should be. But from a regulatory standpoint, that's hard. So we'll see these votes hopefully come through within the next 2 months. And then, we're working with this dispensary partner called Thrive, and they have an amazing location. And we had to sit down and really talk, like, do we do a video game thing or not? And I have to be honest with them, like, look, man, I don't want to necessarily do an esports focused project for you guys. I'll do it with my money. And so we have two on the table. Reset the cannabis, lounge. That'll come later when I get my money for that. But for these guys, I'm creating this high end, just kind of tip of the hat to Las Vegas, food and drink, great entertainment, and cannabis that's, distributed safely, that has a high-end service. You come to Vegas for white glove entertainment and service. That's what we want to give you. And the exciting part about being in that is it's just a lot like esports, where as much as there's a business in going after that cannabis consumer, there's just as much of an invaluable business going to that non-endemic consumer and saying, hey, look, here's this thing. People are doing it. It's a lot of fun. Let me show you how to do it safely, properly, and start learning the lingo. Welcome to either cannabis or welcome to esports.
Chris, I want to extract like a business lesson from this if possible. Mm-hmm. The theme in my mind of your career, post, medical devices, is you've sort of pioneered things, right? Like you've been the first to do something, and that's often really hard, right? Like, especially in considering most of the things you've tackled are in regulated kind of environments, and it's a lot of red tape. And like, what is it about? I'm curious. You think your character, your experience, whatever it is, that has enabled you to push through and pioneer some of these things? What is it that other people can sort of take away from that?
I always tell people you can't microwave success, right? This is a time today where everyone's like instant gratification. I want it now. Look what they're doing. I can do it too. And, the reality is a very long, long journey. You got to be able to get the word no told to you a lot. And you just also can't expect things to happen your way just because you think you deserve it. As it stands right now, if you can't accept the word no, then this isn't for you, because I love esports. I also, by the way, love cannabis, but I also love betting. And that's why I'm still in it. If you can't keep going through it because the passion's not there to fulfill you being told no, then this isn't for you. But I enjoy being told no, because it's like, all right, great. I'm going to tell you why yes. And it might not happen today. It might not happen tomorrow. It could happen a long time from now. And I say this all the time. Insert Coins closed in 2015. I still get press on that place. The place is long dead. I created something that people cared about. As long as you put that effort and love into it, that passion, that authenticity, all those things you said was like the groundwork for esports, you'll be fine. You just have to be able to, number one, take no for an answer. Number two, accept that things aren't going to happen overnight. And number three, suffer a little bit. That's life.
It's such good advice. I mean, I think the patience is something that people miss. Like, everyone expects magic to happen in a very short period of time, and the reality is almost never that. So I love that. Can we talk a little bit about your views on what happens to gaming? We tape this on a Wednesday, and for people who've been watching the markets, for example, the last couple of days, it's been bad, right? Crypto's been down, the public markets have been down, all the esports stocks have been killed for the most part, right? They're all way down. What do you think happens to gaming and esports? If you could talk to each individually, because I think they are distinct in this conversation, in a situation where we go into, call it a recession for the next 12 months or 24 months, or Like, do you believe that these things are recession proof, they're recession resistant, that they're all going to be affected? Like, how do you view the next year or two if markets continue to be difficult and the economy in general?
No, I'm excited about this because what it's going to do is it's going to trim the fat. Insert Coins was open during a recession. This is where I had a lot of local support. I think esports is going to find themselves in a position where they're going to start to grow a lot more local support because it's not going to be so top heavy anymore. And it's going to be like, hey, what we really need? We need to build this audience. How do you build the audience? You start spending money to get those local, things to happen. I really tip my hat to the guys at Belong Arena and Vindex because, they're just really like, forget it. We're just going to focus on, the kids. Great. Build that up. And that's the esports take. From a gaming perspective, oh, please, there's nothing to worry about. We're seeing numbers going down right now because it's compared to last year during COVID. So, of course, numbers are down. Everyone was home doing nothing, but it's still markedly up from what it was before. And, time and time again, when I look at numbers, how hard is it to get a PlayStation 5 and an Xbox these days? It still kind of is. And there's a market that still wants those. Once those things come out, someone's going to buy it, and again, like cigarettes and liquor and everything that Vegas has to offer, we're pretty damn recession proof. I think video games are as well. And esports will be because it's still a form of entertainment that we can get away from and enjoy. And again, the hardcore audience that we've built really wants that validation still. They're not going to stop just because they have less money. I like to spend that much money anyway in esports today, but it's a few more cents to lose them.
What do you make of F1 coming to Vegas? It's what everyone's talking about. Do you think this is going to have a positive? Obviously, it should have a positive impact on the city, but what's the impact you think to gaming businesses, cannabis businesses? Some of the things you're doing. Do you think this is a huge boon for the city, or?
F1 is esports, just like esports is soccer. It's huge everywhere else, but not here. But then you watch it on Netflix, and wow, look at this F1 thing, and now everyone's an F1 expert. I don't watch F1. I don't watch NASCAR, but I'm glad people love it and I'm glad people are excited. And yes, bring it to Vegas. That's why we're a reset, right? We're always going to have something new to get people excited. F1 racing, sure, come to Vegas. Let's go. If 5 years from now, someone's watching some kind of skydiving, who knows what, and that's a sport, great. Come on over. Let's do it. But, the fascinating thing is this disruption that's happening in all these forms of entertainment. Vegas is always going to bring it in with open arms because we want to bring people to our city, and we do a very good job of bringing that to it. I'm not going to sit here and say I know who this Schumacher guy is, but if he comes, hey, man, cool, welcome to Vegas. But, again, I do think that that's what makes Las Vegas an opportunity to be a hub for esports, is that we embrace these things with open arms because we know there's an audience for it. These guys at F1, they got a lot of money too, so come on over. But, in due time, we'll see the same with esports.
And Chris, sorry, before we get to the everyone's favorite new segment here, the last question I had was the second part of that question I asked you, right? The stuff that bothers you the most these days when it comes to gaming and esports. But then what is the thing you're most excited about, right? That thing that, you see so much potential or so much opportunity, maybe things that other people are missing.
No, I think that we're seeing some really amazing stuff from these esports betting companies where right now behind the scenes, they're pivoting and finding other ways to make gambling more attractive to gamers. I always go back to Rivalry where they have this really cool betting game that's essentially like marbles on Steam, if you're familiar with that title. But, it's those new innovations that are going to come out that when we package all that into esports and gaming betting and all these, ramifications of the video game industry and culture and put it in a casino, remember the Atari Hotel story? Here's something that just came into my head. Oh yeah, the Atari Hotel. We're coming to do all this with all this money, and then womp womp, nothing happened. But you want to know something? That's going to kick a lot of ass 10 years from now because that's what the young market will want.
Assuming it sees the light of day. I mean, that's the
it's going to be called Reset,
projects,
man.
right?
Reset Casino, baby.
And it'll be in Saudi Arabia or something, Chris. That's
also,
where
I know. Neon, here I come.
That's it. I want to make sure we get to everyone's favorite new segment, and that is the Honorable Judge Jimmy Baratta's cross-examination. The way this works, Jimmy's going to ask you a few rapid-fire questions, get to know you a bit better as a person, as a gamer. Judge Jimmy, take it away.
All right, Chris, you're a long time listener, so you know how this goes. I'm going to dive right into it. First question: what is your favorite gaming collaboration?
Oh, I never heard this question.
Trying to keep everyone on their toes with
That's
some
a
fresh
good one.
ones.
I'm like,
every once in a while.
wait. Okay. Wait. All right. So, oh man, I know we're on a clock too. All right. I'm not. Okay. So 2012 or 2013, I was invited to a place called I Am 8-Bit, I think. And they did a Street Fighter art collaboration thing.
Oh,
And
cool.
essentially it was in somewhere in California. My girlfriend at the time took me there, and I spent probably $2,000 on pieces of original art for Street Fighter. And I still have them all over my house. And what I saw
That's so
there
cool.
it was super cool. And it was just local artists who were like, all right, here's the Street Fighter thing, paint some pictures. And yeah, I think it's I Am 8-Bit. It was a 25th anniversary Street Fighter thing for artists.
It's good to hear an answer that's not Fortnite, huh, Paul?
That's
awesome, Chris.
I mean, that would have been that. I would not have survived that if Chris had said, "Oh, Fortnite Balenciaga," or like.
All right. Next question for you, Chris. What game are you currently playing, or what's your favorite all-time game? I'll broaden it a little bit here.
All right, we have a sophisticated audience here. Here's what we're going to do. Favorite arcade game, Street Fighter 2. Favorite PC game, Civilization. Favorite console game, Journey. Everyone should play Journey after a long day of work. Beat the game, drink your drink, smoke your smoke, and start a new day again. Journey is one of the greatest therapy sessions you can have. But I break it down by, industry.
Chris, can I just ask a quick question? Sorry, Jimmy.
Please.
Yeah.
As a Civilization fan, I assume you're a Sid Meier fan. Did you ever play Master of Orion?
Yes, of course, as well as what's the Star Centauri? Sorry, now I'm sounding like a fraud. But yes, those are old games. I played most.
Are you talking about Star Control?
No. There's a different one where it was just in space. Centauri, right? It was just Civilization in space. Alpha Centauri.
Yes, Alpha Centauri. That's right.
Correct.
But it wasn't as good as Master of Orion. Master of Orion, I think, was his best game.
That's fair. I still probably put hundreds and hundreds of hours in Civilization 2 on a really crappy laptop in college.
It's a great game.
All right, nerds, back to the questions. Let's go. Everyone's favorite. Chris, what's your favorite gamer snack or drink?
Oh, an old fashioned and a joint.
Good answer.
No follow up. Just smiles. On last question for me. You stumped me, Chris. Honestly, I wasn't expecting it. Last one. What's your favorite television show or movie that shares IP with a video game?
All right, so there's two answers to this, and I don't know how judges normally do this or deal with this. So if it's egocentric and I'm promoting myself, 100 Yen, the Japanese arcade experience. In 2012, I helped fund this documentary about the impact of arcades in Japan and how it would translate to the States. Really fun project to get involved with. And part of the thing that I want to see more, from the esports world, I saw that there's a I Am Spinal Tap documentary thing coming out for esports guys. Cool idea. Let's see more of those things. But a serious answer, it would be the Lost Arcade. I was very lucky to have played in Chinatown Fair as a teen. And this documentary about this just revered, landmark. And Paul, to your Civilization fixation like myself, esports needs as much history as possible. And we can't ignore what the arcade scene was for said history. And for me, the Lost Arcade captured what Chinatown Fair was as like the mecca of esports.
I mean, such a good answer. What was the name of the first one? The first documentary, Chris? I just want to make sure our audience hears
100 Yen, the Japanese arcade experience. You can find it on Hulu.
Very cool.
All great. That's it for me. Thanks, Chris, for coming on, and back to you, Paul.
Chris, this was, like I said, the highlight, I think, of we're probably 300 plus episodes at this point. This to me was such a highlight. How can people follow you, find you, follow what you're doing with Reset? Like, where can you be found and followed?
So the mayor of Las Vegas called me Chris of Coins a long time ago, and so that became my Twitter handle. So just find me at Chris of Coins and all the socials, LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to chat. Christopher LaPorte, and that's where you'll find me.
I can't wait for the day we get to go hang out at Reset together, play some video games. That is a day I'm very much looking forward to. And everyone needs to go follow what Chris is doing. He's the smartest guy in the esports space right now, if you ask me, and the one that I love to tangle with every single week on our live show. So if you're not aware, come tune into that every Wednesday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern time. Guys, just a little bit of housekeeping. Make sure to follow Business of Esports everywhere at Biz Esports, on Instagram, on TikTok, on LinkedIn, on YouTube, you name it, on every single platform you can find our content. We really appreciate it. Jimmy, thank you. Chris, thank you so much. This was an absolute honor. And for our listeners, guys, don't forget the most important thing, the future is fun. We'll see you guys next week.
Peace out.